Well, ladies and gents, I have finally done it. Cleared Mighty Number 9. It took a little more effort than I was planning on, but it is done now, and as you can tell, I'm kind of doing this without the tripod, because I plan on moving a little bit while the credits kind of roll, and actually reposition the camera. So, I'm going to do that real quick. You're going to hear noise, but no visual, for a few seconds at least, as I get resituated. I'm going to let the music play in the background while I do this as well, and I know this is terribly professional what I'm doing right now, but you know what? YOLO, I don't even care. Hopefully the angles will be alright. Don't worry, I will actually have my camera, so I can adjust the height and all that. So, time for a Mighty Number 9 review. Once I get this camera up, and as you may have noticed, I don't have very much hair right now because I just basically buzz cut it. But regardless, a little bit further back. Oops, wrong way. I know this is so professional. So, Mighty Number 9 review. In the undershirt, because it's so hot I don't even want to wear a normal shirt. Well, when I first started playing this game, it was definitely as a consumer, so there was a lot of anger, upset feelings about it, and with good reason. I actually wouldn't be able to hear this too, so. Okay, so, going into this game, I wasn't terribly generous, I'll admit. What? Okay. Sorry, I just was hearing something in the background going. Oh. I hate it when games do this, when they have ending credits with rap in them. I hate rap. Okay, so I'm glad I didn't really get into the review as the credits are rolling because... Ugh. So, this is my initial review of the game. Going into it, I definitely went into it with a consumer's viewpoint, very upset with the lack of customer service, and I didn't really care too much about the graphics, although, it being generous, they are PS2 graphics. There are some times where the aesthetics are very nice, they kind of fit the world that has been built, so okay. Now, I know this review is all over the place, but to be fair, this campaign with Kickstarter, with just everything, and just how crazy everything's been to get the game, it's been all over the place, so I think it's kind of justified. So, let's go ahead and kind of review element upon element. Music, honestly, let's bar the rap music because let's ignore rap music. But if we're to ignore that particular soundtrack, which is just a pet peeve of mine, the music on the whole is kind of forgettable. I mean, there's not really a track that stands out outside the intro theme, the da-da-da-da-da-da, that's been playing ever since Kickstarter. So, thankfully the music's not bad. It fits. It's not great, but it's okay. No real soundtrack really sticks out to me, although I did kind of catch, this isn't too bad, on the final boss stage, and that's about it, really. There weren't really any tracks that really caught my attention. They weren't bad, just serviceable. So, what does stand out in this game? Characters, for the most, we'll actually move into story instead of trying to bounce around like I'm trying to do. So story is kind of done in a comic books slash cartoons of the 80s style, and honestly, I don't mind it. It's a throwback, and a little bit corny, a little bit cheesy. I don't mind the story, really. Is it super in-depth? No, of course not. It's a Mega Man-esque title, so you're not expecting super in-depth. The real big surprise is just the villains of the game, if there are a villain. And there's no real Dr. Wily figure in the game outside of the mysterious Dr. Blackwell, who may be behind it. So an actual Dr. Wily figure doesn't really show up, but kind of does. So I don't really want to spoil things, because if you want to play the game, that's your thing. So personally, I liked the take, just the way they did it. They're trying to establish a world that is not Mega Man in their own right, and the fact that they did it the way they did, I think gives it enough of a twist that you have this classic telling in a new way. So story, I'm actually okay with. Is it super high art? No. But for what it is alright. But what about the characters? Oh dear. They just started going through the list of mighty backers, and they're doing actually like 2 columns at once, and within like 10 seconds we're in the 800-900 mark, so whew! Anyway, that being given, that being said, let's just keep moving on. So story's fine. Characters, ultimately most of them are pretty forgettable. The Pyro Jan, I believe is his name. I think they just call him Pyro in game, so I'm going to refer to him as that. He kind of is your basic, I'm a fireball, I'm going to blow everything up character, so not a lot to say about him. Mighty number 2, Cryosphere, she's supposed to be kind of the mascot character and has an obsession with ice puns, which fits her character but does get a little grating. So I guess it makes her memorable because you remember all of her "ice to see you." I mean, this is like Mr. Freeze levels of punning. The Batman and Robin movie, that kind of level of puns. So you do remember her, and thankfully she's not on screen too much, and someone does counter pun her, and it actually is a little funny when that happens. So she's decently rememberable as a boss, kind of. I mean, it's not the good kind of memory in that regard, but it is something to make her kind of stand out. So you take that as you will. Number 3 was... That's actually a good question. Mighty numbers. I'm just pulling up the list so I can kind of look through them as I go. Because if I don't, I'm not going to remember them all. Mighty number 3 was the electric girl, who kind of looks like a vampire person. I can't remember her name. It's like Spark something, or well, you can tell I have a little bit of trouble remembering some of these characters. And oddly enough, she's actually not too unrememberable, but she, just like Mighty number 2, has the problem of being a pun fanatic, and having 2 mighty numbers in a row that have the mighty thing going, I mean the pun thing going, mighty, I'm hearing that in the background. Really frustrating. Mighty number 4 is the Seismic guy. I think his name is just Seismic. They just call him Mick, I believe, in game, and he's completely forgettable. 5 is basically a crazy southern drill sergeant, drill instructor, which makes him kind of stand out because he's just completely nuts. So he's kind of fun. Number 6 is Avi, Aviator, and personally he is my favorite mighty number of the bunch, hands down. Take kind of the personality of Deadpool, stick it in a flying robot, and then go, oh, by the way, you're actually a news broadcaster. That's your general gist of what this guy's like. He's nuts. It's hilarious. He pulls out a joke if Beck dies in his battle. That can be downright hilarious. So, honestly, normally I don't say go get yourself killed, but against him, you might want to do that a few times, because once he says that, you'll understand why. Mighty number 7, Brand. He's not really super interesting as a character. His art style, what he looks like, is pretty cool, but interesting? Not really. I mean, he's an okay guy as a robot, but not really interesting. Last is, of course, Mighty number 8, the last boss of the 8 numbers, and his boss battle is definitely different and kind of interesting. Same with the stage, but as a character, the thing that really makes him stand out is actually his voice, which, outside of him, most of the voices are bland to ow, but They actually do a really good job with counter shadow or something like that, shade or something like that. But so his voice does stand out because he just has this really neat pitch that fits the character, and really probably is the best fitting voice of the batch. Out of the humans, Sonda, I don't really like Sonda, I'll be honest. Mostly because they depicted him to be really cowardly. He's kind of like the cliche American, but with a lot of cowardliness at points. Surprisingly smart for being a bit of a coward, but okay, a lot of a coward. But he's not a character I really like. Maybe if there's an installment after this, he might be a little better, but Mighty number 2572, your mom. Well, okay, 2572. I guess that's what you wanted to have as your name, so okay. Anyway, character-wise, none of them really super stand out, and the worst offender of the not standing out category is the main character, Beck. You're supposed to be invested in this character, interested in this character. His voice doesn't help. He never shows any personality outside of, yes, sir. Okay, so what is he like? He kind of hesitates in fights, but you never see that. I don't want to fight you. You sound like X, except not as interesting. You sound like whiny X7X when you do that. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but you get the idea. The voice acting is definitely better than X7. Just before you start to worry, because I made that reference, no, the voices are better than X7. But then again, a train wreck is better than X7. So, Mighty number 9 does have a passable to actually one, maybe two characters that are all pretty good sounding in their own right. I'm talking the English voice dubs. I haven't tried the Japanese ones. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I might. Regardless, keep moving on. In a game like this, though, the real selling point is the gameplay. If you can't get the gameplay down, you might as well give up. That's what a platformer like Mega Man or Mighty number 9 really has to rely on. That's what the vast majority of things are going to be. And when Mighty number 9 is working, it is absolutely a blast. I mean, I can tell you there were some points I was really having fun when the momentum's going, there's no frame rate drops, which is one of the problems, which I'll get to in a little bit. When you don't have these issues, the game is a blast. It can be. Unfortunately, this too struggles. As I mentioned, there are frame rate drops, which are absolutely lethal. I had, in Cryosphere's level, in particular, Mighty number 2's level, it's an ice level, so you got sliding platform, like you land on them, you can slide around. There's spikes, so you have to be really careful on how you land. And this particular level, unfortunately, towards the end, like right before the last ladder that leads you to the boss, there are a couple of platforms, which are a pretty easy jump. You just jumped on one, destroy the enemy here, and then destroy the other enemy. And you can hop across, dash, and climb up the ladder. Easy, you'd think. Unfortunately, there's a frame rate drop that I had where I'd get on the first platform, destroy the boss, and go to jump across to the second platform so I can hit the other enemy, dash across, and go up the ladder. And unfortunately, the frame rate would drop, so it just goes straight down. I did that 12 times in a row. I got so frustrated, I was like, I'm done, I'm not touching this game again, I quit. But then I went, if I'm going to review a game, I gotta finish it. I gotta keep going. So, after cooling down, relaxing, taking a breather, several hours later, I came back to the game, and I didn't have the frame rate drop there, so I was able to pass and beat the boss. I don't know what causes that, but the frame rate issue is a problem. The two spots I noticed that were really bad were on Mighty number 1 stage when you're trying to cross towards the end of the stage. There's some falling smokestacks, I guess, and the frame rate can drop there, and that can be lethal too. The other spot I noticed really noticeably was actually they're kind of random in spots, but also towards the final boss when I was trying to get across this one area where the walls kind of go back and forth, Mega Man Crush style. Kind of like that, there was a frame rate drop when I was using an explosive weapon which helps you cross. I did have a frame rate drop there too. So there are key areas. Thankfully, it only happened on one of the playthroughs of that final boss level. I had to do it several times because I was really struggling with that boss. It's actually a pretty challenging boss, especially when you're exhausted and not awake from the battle. But once you're awake, you're on your toes, the final boss isn't too bad. Now, the other thing I do need to mention with this entire problem is apparently when you're not playing story mode, at least backstory mode, like if you go to Ray's DLC, the frame rate issue is not nearly as intensive. Like I played through a couple stages as Ray, and I didn't have very many frame rate drops. And I played one of the hardest frame rate drop areas, and while there was still a smidge of one, it was nearly non-existent compared. So yeah, I don't understand why it's the story mode that's giving problems. And I haven't tried the speed run or the challenges yet. I'll try them just a little bit at least to see if frame rate doesn't take place there or not. Wow, the credits are still going. We're on like the 4000s. Anyway, frame rate drops, obviously a problem. The other thing I did notice was a big bug, which I've actually posted in my YouTube comment. I'll leave a link in the description below for you. And basically the boss was like, you know what, I'm gonna go invincible and I'm done. I quit. I'm freezing here. So I had to let myself die, and that wasn't funny. I was doing really well. So yeah, there are bugs and glitches that are not funny, not cool, and I really hope they get patched. So what do I have to say about Mighty Number 9? Honestly, it's when the game is really working that it honestly hurts the most, because you see kind of the glimmer of what this game could have been, what it might have been. And that might have been is actually a pretty fun, solid platformer. Even if the stages don't really reflect backstash abilities at points. There are points where, like when you're in the closer corridors that are thin and you actually have to use your various types of jumps and abilities to get through, that's when the game really shines. Other areas just don't. Like there's an area where you drop down in a water area and you're supposed to cross the other side. Well, it's a big open area, so what you can do is just dash across. You don't have to touch the ground at all, and so you cross a lot of ground without ever doing anything else except dashing. And that takes a lot of the challenge out of the game when you have areas like that. So, I know the lighting's not very good right now. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but regardless. So, my final result for Mighty Number 9 has to be a 4 out of 10. And I'm going on more of a Joe scale, Angry Joe, where it's like 5 is an average game. This is a slightly below average game just because of the glitches, the errors, and the struggles it does have with the frame rate. If there were no frame rate issues, if there were no major bugs that stop you from playing, like having the final boss freeze up on you, this game could have been a 5, maybe even a 6. I mean, I could see it go to an above average game if these frame rate issues and things like that weren't in play. I'd say probably, though, an average game. So, slightly below average, and it hurts to say that, because I see where this game could have been phenomenal. That being said, I'm actually going to say a little message to Concept right now. I doubt they'll ever see it, but if they do, this is what I have to say. Mighty Number 9 shows a lot of potential. This game honestly kind of bombed. It didn't do what it was supposed to, so it bombed. Is it a horrible game? No, but it wasn't what Mighty Number 9 should have been. I think, honestly, with the franchise, what Concept you're going to need to do is go ahead and, once you have the finances for it, grit your teeth and bite the bullet and go, I know the first game was bad. It's because of the PR disasters, because of the frame rate drops because of all these issues, and it really hurt our reputation. But we can kind of get back on track and push forward and actually make this into a franchise. It does have that potential, I see that. But you're going to have to take that first step. Look at Mega Man 1 to 2. Mega Man 1 was somewhat successful as a game. Rockman had some success. Rockman 2 was only because people like Inafune and the developers of the first Rockman, the first Mega Man game, went, we want to make this game. We believe it deserves a sequel. And Capcom at the time said, you can develop it on your own time. So you did. And you started a legend. I think Mighty Number 9, to move forward, is going to have to take that kind of devotion. So, Mr. Inafune, Keiji Inafune, developers at Concept and Intercreates and everything, gather up your resources needed for a sequel. Make it shine, then put it out. And one thing you probably should do, this is my kind of PR advice for Concept, is when you do, and if you decide on DLC, like make Ray Mark II or whatever, a DLC character, give it to your backers for the first game as kind of an apology, and it'll kind of encourage them to try to check out the second game. You might even offer them a small discount on the second game as well as a free demo. That, I think, will help build your relations and throw a bone to them. But for now, what we have is a game that needs a patch or two, and until then, it's going to be sitting at a 4 or... yeah, at a 4. So, Mighty Number 9, just not as mighty as he could have been. And I really do hope that this game shows a sequel that's worth the potential. Until then, I'll see you next time. Later.